Boom. Welcome back to another session of the Project Freedom Podcast, where I have the liberty to discuss whatever the hell it is that I wanteth to discuss this, my friends. So if I could go back in time, guys, and start the entire process of learning how to code, being employed as a software engineer, starting a startup company, actually one's not really a startup anymore, and everything that was encompassed in the last 10 to 15 years of my life, what would I have done differently, and what would I have changed, and what would I have not changed? As you guys know, the title of the video is obviously how I learned to code. Again, if I started from zero, but instead of me actually just like saying, oh, I do this instead, do that, rather allow me to go through the process of what exactly I did, and then I'll tell you guys. And actually, you know what? Don't even have the right mic. There you go. That should be better. I will actually tell you guys what I did, what I went through from zero to shadowy supercoder hero. And I will tell you guys, all right, I'll do this different, or I wouldn't do this, or I would do that. Okay. So I'll just use my life as an example. And I mean, it's impossible to do everything the right way. Okay. It's not impossible to do it a very good way, but it's possible for everybody to do everything 100% the right way, unless, you know, from the day that you were born and you came out of your mother's womb, that like you had a support network of all these people around you, your parents and everything were like, okay, you're going to be the best software engineer. You're going to be the best engineer ever. You're going to be better than Elon Musk. You know, the Elon Musk guy, we're going to make sure that every moment that you're living and breathing, it's going to be tailored to you being this top-notch engineer. I mean, you can't do that, right? But what I can do is I can tell you guys where I started and what it all took for me to get to where I am now, and the things that I would have done differently or I would have kept the same. Because believe it or not, not everything was the worst choice ever. So cheers to you guys all on that. New Horizon says, oh, hi. Oh, hello. Good to see you, man. All right, guys. So where did it all start? When I was growing up, my father was a computer hobbyist. I was probably like 6 years old, approximately. I was probably maybe between like 5 to maybe 8 years old from when I like first actually started using computers consciously. Okay. So before I could even really do much of anything. And that was because my dad, like, he just had machines in the house. At this time, I was born in 1991. And at this time, having like a computer in your house was like the cool thing to do. And, you know, my dad's got a old neck in the day. My dad was indeed a cool guy. And so obviously we had the cool guy computers, right? So I was tinkering on computers ever since I was a little kid. The first thing that I did that was actually the first thing that I did was like anything remotely similar to software development was doing some like really basic HTML with my dad when I literally don't even remember how old I was. I must have actually been like 6, 7, or 8 years old. Maybe I was like 9, 10, or 11. But all I remember, guys, and I can tell you exactly what I did specifically. And if my dad is watching the stream, he's going to remember this too. So we were making an HTML file, and the whole premises of this was like, hey, I want to make a website. And me and my dad were like, okay, let's make a website together. And so I was making a website, and I didn't know at the time, but it was HTML. And I basically I was a really big fan of The Legend of Zelda, if you guys know that game series, which I'm sure most of you guys do. And what me and my dad did was, my dad just really showed me how to do this stuff. And what I did was I made this HTML file that had like a yellow background, and it had a bunch of pictures of Link from The Legend of Zelda on it. Okay. And if you are a software developer, or you know even the tiniest bit of software development, especially web development, you guys know that like that's pretty simple to do with HTML, right? You just have a basic HTML file, and then maybe you have some image tags in there with the source attribute and setting it equal to whatever file name that is the image that you guys want to use. From there, I was a little kid, and maybe I think around like the age of 12, my grandpa actually bought me a laptop back when laptops were like unheard of. And then I started playing this video game known as RuneScape. Some of you guys might also know that game. And this was probably also around the age of 12, which, by the way, I played this video game on and off for at least like 8 years after that, if not longer. And this video game, my friends, RuneScape, which was an online MMORPG or multiplayer, whatever MMORPG stands for. I don't even know anymore, guys, because I don't play games anymore. But it was a game that you played online with other people, live in real time. And this video game essentially got me into tinkering with a computer more so than an average 12 to 16-year-old kid should be tinkering with a computer. Now, why was I tinkering with a computer at this age and doing things that most like prepubescent teenagers don't do? Well, if you guys know anything about RuneScape, they had some valuable items in there. Your character, you could walk around, you could collect things, and believe it or not, you could actually go and sell these things for real world money. But in high school and in junior high, it was actually cooler to have the things so that you could show off to all your classmates and be like, ooh, look how distinguished I am with my purple and blue and red party hat. So the only really real way that you could get good money in that game, except for playing like years and years and years for 24 hours a day and just like stacking up tiny bits of money here and there, was you either had to buy gold from a third-party provider. So what you would do is you go to a website and you'd pay with your credit card, and then they would meet you in the game and they'd trade you gold based off of whatever amount of gold that you bought. Or you could do things like player kill people, which is you could just kill people in like a fight and you could take their items, or you could hack and fish people. So what do you guys think I did? Well, I'll let you guys know I did all the above, but my friend, his name was, I'll just say that his name was Scott T. Okay. Shout out to Scott T if you're watching the channel. I hope you are, dude, because I haven't heard from you in forever. You always disappear. Scott T, my friends, he essentially had this great idea. There was this software called Poison Ivy. And back then, you could just go and pay for the software. Nowadays, you can pay for it, but it's going to be in a vast area of the internet that most people don't go to, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. And he had this idea. He was like, okay, this software, which by the way, guys, Poison Ivy is a keylogging software. So basically, whoever downloads the software, there's someone on another computer that basically can control their whole computer, and they can see every single keystroke that was typed by a user. So he was like, all we got to do is get people to download this software. And we're like, well, how are we going to do that? He's like, look, we just got to make a website, and it could be the shittiest website ever, but we got to make a website. We give them this link, and when they go to the website, they click the link, and they're going to download something. And once they download it, well, that's it. We're in. And I was like, okay, well, we don't know how to do any of that, let alone, we don't know how to even make a website, let alone like, didn't even know that there was a process to deploying code for a website onto a production server like AWS or something else like that. But needless to say, Google existed, so we did indeed figure it out. New Horizons says, massive multiplayer online role-playing game. Okay. Diablo items are huge on eBay transactions. Yeah, because you could actually go back then and World of Warcraft too, games like that, I'm sure most of you guys do. Back then, you could actually go and like buy and sell items for real world money, which you can nowadays as well, obviously, right? Even probably more so today. Christian Soto, 123 in the house, says, good evening. I like your new picture, Christian. It looks very, very nice. My current roommate used to pay his rent with it. LOL. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Yeah, there's people. A lot of people actually in like third world countries, like they make full time like good salaries in comparison to what other people make from like playing video games. And there's, you guys know GameFi, right? Like decentralized game experience. I don't know. GameFi is just kind of like a meme to me, if I'm being honest. RIP to the people who bought Jewel. Harry Maguire Jr. says, learn by doing. Yeah. So that's what we did, guys. We ended up figuring out how to duct tape and bootstrap together enough crappy code to where we had a website. And when we would direct message players in the video game, be like, oh my God, I can't believe that I saw that video of you doing the naughty deed with your dog. How could you do that? And they would respond, well, what are you talking about, man? I don't have any video like that. No, it's right here. Here's a link to this website. They went to the website and they would click the link and they would say, oh, let's tell me I need to download something. And then we would just say something like, oh, yeah, no, we had to do it too. It's totally okay to download it. So that was the first thing that I did that involved me doing like actual software development, even more so than the little website that I made with my dad. Okay. And I think that was very beneficial because not only did it teach me some basics of programming, which I didn't even know I was ever going to use again, let alone in college or later on in life, but it also, guys, I was using a Windows, and it also familiarized me with just like how to use a file, how to navigate the file structure of your machine. We had to deploy it on a Linux server, so it got me familiarized with things like basic Linux, which if everyone is a developer, you're going to have to eventually know. Okay. So would I have done that differently? No. Honestly, no. I would say like to you guys,
Well, if you're 16 years old, you don't need to hack people to learn how to code.
Obviously, right, guys? But like, let's be all realistic with ourselves. What 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid is really going to sit down and be like, I want to learn how to do some engineering. How am I going to do that? Right? If you're 16, if you're anywhere between like 9 and like 21, and you're a guy, you really just want to do like a couple things, right? Get drunk, have sex, hang out with your friends, not talk to your mom and dad, right? That's basically it. And definitely not go to school and definitely not study unless things are fun. So what I did was we ended up making this whole entire process of doing something with software and with computers fun. And it was a learning thing, even though we didn't even intend it to be that way. So I would not do that over again. However, if I were you and I was that age, I would try, or maybe you're an adult and you have a kid and you want to be able to like, which I know somebody somebody had a consultation with me and was asking me something about like how they can make their kid involved with like learning to code. Like you have to trick them into making it this kind of fun thing. Okay. So after that, I went off to college, and then obviously I got a degree. Now, you guys probably know how I feel about college. I think that in 2022, college is not that it's a waste of time or money, but in all honesty, it kind of is because it takes 4 to 5 to 6 years and 6 figures of money to go and do that. In 2022, you don't even need to have a college degree. Well, you never did to be a software engineer. But with all the vast amounts of things out there and programs and the things that you can do to even be self-taught, there is literally no need to do that. So I do think college benefited me. But if I'm being honest with you guys, I didn't really even learn like much of any of the things that I know now until after I graduated college and I was doing software engineering, software development, and being paid for it on a personal level. Okay. Most 90% of my learning was done in the field. So would I have gone to college again? In all honesty, guys, I'm going to have to say no. If colleges were the way that they are in 2022, meaning they cost an absurd amount of money, they don't really have the best teachers. Most teachers are just there on tenure and they really can't even be removed. So they can suck, and you don't learn really much of anything about having to actually get a job. You learn some theoretical computer science stuff if you're actually paying attention. But most people in college, honestly, guys, they're just trying to graduate and they just want to pass their test. So I spent 5 years of my time and an absurd amount of money to get a degree. And did it help me? Yeah, sure. But when things exist like literally developer direction, where we have people who literally get jobs that we have helped that don't even have a degree, let alone all the other sources and venues and methods of ways to learn how to code and to go and get income from that. Not only are you saving for the 5 to 6 years of their life that you could have been spending actually coding and actually making money and actually learning more, because you're going to learn more in the real world than you ever are reading a freaking textbook. I would have done that. At the very least, what I would have done is when I was in college, I wish that I would have spent time actually trying to go and outsource and find like some freelance work, so I could have been getting paid while I was in school, because I would have been years ahead if I had done that instead. Not just with my skill set, but also financially. New Horizon says, China used to make criminals play World of Warcraft and sell gold. LOL. No way. No way. Christian says, I still get those DM messages. LOL, is this you in the vid? Question mark. Check it out. No, yeah. Click to find out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all the same old thing now. But back when we were doing it, it was like fresh and new, and nobody else did it. Shout out to people who homeschool their kids or do online schooling. Yeah. Most likely, unless I'm in like a really good like public school district, I'm gonna most likely be homeschooling my kids, if I'm being honest with you. You should make a video on job seeking process. Like, should people apply to one? I actually have that on the list of things to do, but I think we've talked about that before. I believe hundreds of jobs, and wait for a response, or connect with recruiters and people on LinkedIn. It's a little bit of both, but in all honesty, it depends on your situation too. It depends on your situation too. So after I graduated college, guys, I ended up getting my first job, and I mean, I wouldn't have not gotten a job, right? I wouldn't have not gotten a job. I wouldn't say no, you guys don't go work a job, but I'll tell you guys this: the first job that I worked at was incredibly good experience. It was from a telecom company. I won't tell you what telecom company it was, but we'll just say that they call themselves the Google of Mississippi. The largest privately owned telecom company in the United States. And I got an absurd amount of experience at this place. In fact, that job probably gave me more experience than anything else has in my life, at least as far as overall generic software engineering. Okay. Maybe not in these little nuanced little areas of software engineering, but in the overall generic process of software engineering, I gained an absurd amount of experience. And I also gained like a really good bit of business experience with that as well. So I wouldn't have done that differently. However, I was at that job for almost 2 years. I think it was like 1 year and 8 months. And the pay that I had at that job, it wasn't bad. And especially for like a 22 or 23-year-old kid, it was very good, better than most of my peers. But as far as pay for software engineering, it was subpar. Okay. Because it was my rookie year, and I was a fresh college graduate. So at that point, all I wanted with the job was so I could get the freaking job. Because to me, that was like the biggest thing in the whole world, was to actually have a job with the title of software engineer. And I could put that on my resume and like, oh my God, I could finally do it. I would have left right at the 1 year mark, because at 1 year and 8 months, when I started feeling like I was doing way too much work for what I was getting paid for, and I actually ended up having to do two people's jobs. So I was a software engineer, and we had a database administrator who was also a software engineer, but he was doing two jobs. He quit, and that was my mentor. He quit. And then I had to end up basically being a DBA as well. And I felt extremely overstressed. And then it was a very they're a great company with great people. It was a very old school company. So like, we had a company phone, which, by the way, when I first got that, I thought that was so cool. I can't even imagine having two phones now. Like, I just got rid of that a year and a half ago, or whenever it was last, when I was working as a W-2 employee. Having two phones, no way, not anymore. But at this company, like, basically, if you went to the bathroom and you didn't bring your company phone with you, 25 good boy tokens were going to be deducted from your wallet. I think you guys see where I'm going here. I would have left earlier, because right at the 1 year and 8 month mark, when I started feeling like, hey, I'm doing a little too much more than I'm getting paid for, I ended up getting someone actually emailed me, because they saw my LinkedIn profile, and they were like, hey, how would you like to come do the same thing that you're doing now? Well, you're going to make $25,000 a year more, and you can basically work remote like half the week. And I was like, yeah, sign me up right now. I was gone in an instant, went on to bigger, better. And from there, I had my first taste of like some really good pay. And then I also had the first taste of not having to work in an office every single day. You couldn't just straight up not show up, but pretty much any day that you were like, hey, I'm working from home, it was okay. Everyone did it. It was a commonality, and it worked. It just worked. TM. So from there, guys, from there, I went on to several other jobs, and I'll explain to you guys what I kind of did in a brief summary, and tell you guys the difference of what I would have done compared to now. But going to that, from that second job, taking that second job offer was the best thing I ever did. Most people, a lot of people, no matter what field they're in, they end up just getting stagnant and comfortable in one place. And you could be a software engineer and not even make six figures, because you're just never going to complain. Like, you'll just stay at $99,000 a year. And if you're not going to complain or try to do better and you're lazy, company, if they can make more money off of you than they're paying you, of course they're going to do that. Otherwise, their business model would be destroyed and the company would go insolvent. Let's all just be realistic here. Your boy Cliff says, what examples of tasks, what's an example of tasks that you would do at your job? The first one, Cliff. So the first one is I would literally, anytime there was, so we had 3 or 4 separate applications, and I don't remember exactly, but anytime there was a new page or a new feature, especially reporting tools at this website, meaning that, and by the way, this, you'll have to know this for this to make sense, but I was a software engineer for the automation department. So my clients were people who worked at the telecom company. So our department wrote code for the telecom company, not for people and users that like use the cell phones and use all this stuff. We did do some of that stuff, but it was about like 5% out of 100. So 95%, we were doing a lot of reporting software. So we would make web applications that users could go in and like run a report. So basically they would go in, they would click, it would be like a report that's like how many outages were in this area of the country. And they would go in and they would click date, start date and end date on 2 date pickers. And then they would click submit. And then basically Cliff, the software that we would write would go and the front end code would go and hit some C# code, which from there would go hit and query a database. And that would all bring this data back up to the front. We'd filter it out. We would make all the front end, the heckin' GUIs and the user interface look nice and just stuff like that. That's some basic tasks. I did a lot of that. I also wrote a fuck ton of SQL. If I want to be completely honest, there was we had 2 databases. We had an Oracle database and a Microsoft SQL Server database, and the Oracle database we inherited from a Russian company, and all the SQL and the stored procedures that they wrote in SQL were absolutely terrible. Like they joined in the where clause. For people who know what I'm talking about, they joined in the heckin' where clause. I would be rewriting like multi-thousand line SQL code, and I would rewrite it in like several hundred lines. Go figure. Just don't have to join the where clause. But that's just some basic stuff that I did, Cliff. Self-taught hustle in-house is happy Friday. Yeah, guys, happy Friday indeed. And it's always nice to be a Friday, right? So, guys, from there, actually, before I went on to my third job, which I had proceeded to go to because I was chasing more money, which that's what you should do, guys. And I'm explaining to you why, and other people are going to tell you, don't do that.
You need to have a stable income. Don't you want to be a heckin' good boy and be stable? I mean, if people see that you've worked at like 5 different places, they're going to be like, ah.
Ignorance is bliss, my friends. But anyway, what I did before I actually went on to my third legitimate W-2 job was I actually took on some freelancing. I was doing some, what is it called? Ruby on Rails is what I was doing. I was doing Ruby on Rails for some kind of web application for a small company. And this is when I got my first taste of like real money. Okay. I know the $25,000 a year bump from the first to second job sounded like a lot, but no, that was nice. But then when I actually did some 1099 work on the side, some private contracting work, and I actually got paid by the hour for just doing like a couple hours a week of spare code for these people when I had the time at nighttime, I was getting like an extra like $600, $800, $1,200 a week. And that was like really nice. At this point, I started to realize, which by the way, because I was doing 1099 work and because I could legally business expense a lot of that extra money, at this point I realized 1099 is the way to go. I'm getting severely underpaid, even with this like the $25,000 a year raise that I had. I'm getting severely underpaid. If that's what the market is paying for software development, why am I still doing this? So my next job I went into, it wasn't a new job per se. What I actually went into was I was a 1099 private contractor, and I was doing a lot of software development for casinos around the country. And that was pretty posh. Okay. That was pretty posh. That was an awakening. I was basically making well over $100,000 a year as like a 24-year-old kid. And that was a lot of money to me. And it seemed like it was amazing. And it was. It was. Every 2 years, job hop. So, Harry, basically, like the average turnover time in tech is 2 years. So people they know that if someone's going to hire you, and that's like if you're in a hiring process and somebody sees that and to them that's like a red flag, well then you have to think about it like this. It's a red flag to somebody that you went and you took advantage of the fact that you're trying to move up in the world, and you saw a situation to where you could go and do what you're doing for more money, and they're going to dock you for that. They're going to think less of you for trying to build yourself up and do better. Big think, guys. I mean, is that someone that you want to work for? Do you want to work for a place that doesn't want you to actively try to better yourself? I mean, maybe some people do want to do that. Maybe some people don't want to work for. Maybe some people do want to work for a place that they'll try to look down or frown upon you trying to move up in the world. So, but fortunately, though, most people that are realistic, they know that that's the case, and they know that most of the developers on their team are not going to be there 2 years later. It's just how tech is, man. It's not just tech; it's anything. It's anything these days. Ursula von der Lying. Have you ever built a blockchain? I just saw your avatar picture. Have you ever built a blockchain? Are you asking me because the big guy wants to know? The big guy. No, I have never built a blockchain. In order to actually build I mean, you could go and carbon copy some code and just basically make tonight I could redo Ethereum or Bitcoin, the code for it, in like 15 minutes by forking their code on GitHub repository. But to like make a new blockchain that has some kind of like different consensus protocol, which by the way, there's a difference between a blockchain, which is essentially a data structure, and a decentralized computing protocol based off of all these different amounts of literal hardware and software circulating throughout the planet. Because you can have a blockchain on your computer that's not decentralized, it's just centralized, and you're just basically just concatenating blocks of data together. So that those two things together are what actually make things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and protocols like that. But to do something like new and inventive and awesome, I mean, there's just no point. I don't think that there's any like type of like chain that hasn't been done, and that doesn't interest me. I would rather be doing smart contract development. But I mean, maybe one day when I actually have the free time, I would do that. Although when I'm going to have that much free time, I don't know. I really don't. So yeah, guys, back to the story. I went to go do private contracting work for casinos, and at this point, that was the money. And I wished that I had actually gone back and instead of my first job just doing a W-2 or being a W-2 employee, I should have been doing 1099 work the entire time. Now, that's not actually what I would have done if I could have started over. If I could have started over, what I would have done was I would have actually worked that regular job for a year, because, and this is something I tell all of my clients, there's something that you just can't get from being a freelance or a self-employed or even owning your own software company. That there's just something that you're not gonna be able to get unless you're forced to be behind a cubicle, or at least in a structured, regimented workplace that you're forced to do some things that you don't want to do. Okay. Otherwise, if you're your own software, if you own your own software company, or you're 1099, and a client just doesn't care what language or what tech stack you're building the software for them, you're going to do it whatever tech stack or framework that you think is the easiest or the best. You're not going to be challenged to go do all these things. There's a lot of things you're not going to learn. And also, and having to be able to interact with just regular people as a developer, I mean, you're going to have to interact with like people on all kinds of different areas of your company that aren't software developers. I think that's a big benefit. And I really think everyone should spend at least 1 year with boots on the ground in like a traditional workspace. And if they're like, well, I want to go make more money, well, then just double dip. Okay. Get your W-2 job. And then on top of the W-2 job, go do some private contracting work. Okay. So what I would have done if I could go back is I would have actually worked that first job for a year. And instead of going to the second W-2 job where I did get a big raise of 25 grand a year, I would have just gone immediately into private contracting work. If I even knew that was a possibility, which I didn't even know that was a thing, if I'm being honest with you guys, because of course in school and in all throughout life, no one teaches you like, hey, here's what a W-2 employee is. you're not going to be able to pay taxes yourself. They're just going to automatically take money out of your pocket, and then you have to be able to hope that you get some back. Whereas there's a 1099, you can charge your own rate, but except you have to pay your own tax at the end. However, you can business expense things because that is how the law works. So that's what I would have done differently, guys. And I would have been doing that from the bat, and I would have been charging $150 an hour right off the bat. So that is where I think I could have made the most, at least financial progression. And at the same time, you don't have to, at this point in time, you should know enough, or I did know enough to where I don't really need to go and do obtuse things. I could just choose to continue to learn different things that were interesting to me, like Web3. Which, by the way, guys, if you are in the software development field, you guys basically know that once you make that commitment to become a software engineer or to be in tech, that things change so rapidly. So if you want to stay relevant, you have to stay with the times, and you basically have to commit yourself to learning new things. But if that's something that you like and you can make it fun, that's not a problem. It's actually a bonus. Ursula says, I asked because I work as an engineer using Tendermint consensus all in Rust. Okay, building a blockchain is way harder than dApp development. Absolutely. They want to add EVM smart contracts. I do miss dApp development. Yeah, so that's the thing. And I'm glad that I didn't have to go out of my way to explain that, because you already know, building an actual chain and not just the blockchain itself, right? Building a blockchain and then also a public and open distributed computing network software with that's based off of a blockchain technology. That's a lot harder than just writing a smart contract, right? You're basically having to build an entire blockchain in that manner is basically like, if you were to do that on your own, it's like, okay, if I tell you where you're at right now, okay, go and make me an operating system that's just like Windows from scratch. It's going to be hard to do, right? It'll be very hard to do. For 1099, do you need your own LLC? No, you don't need your own LLC for 1099. However, you can actually, if you want to be able to maximize your tax deductions, getting an LLC is going to be the way to go. At that point, the LLC just gets paid, and then the LLC can pay yourself. So you have basically two venues for which you can tax deduce. The LLC, which you can spend money, you can use the company itself can purchase things that could be prevalent to that's prevalent and that it could be allowed to be tax deduced. And you can do that. And then yourself as the private contractor, so your LLC can basically pay you via 1099. Then you can further business deduce things yourself. So you're saving more money on taxes. Go guys, go read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Some people don't like that guy Robert Kiyosaki. Some people say that he's a liar. Irregardless what you think, that's one thing you'll learn in the book is the number one way to make more money is to be able to save money on taxes. Because if we're being all honest with us, taxes we're getting a bad word that I don't want to say. 1099 game. Yes, indeed. LinkedIn recruiters be like,
I see you working in blockchain.
Yeah, well, of course recruiters don't know what the hell they're talking about, which is why we famoose them back. We famoose them. They get famoosed. Yeah, I mean, all the guys in DD, you guys all know the whole process that we go through famoosing these recruiters. You got to reverse famoose them, man. You got to do the reverse famoose because they don't know what they're talking about, and you do. So that's very fortunate for you. Max Signita says parents should get a tax break if they homeschooled their kids. They're saving the state money. Couldn't agree more, man. I could not agree more. Exactly. In more ways than just the school, too. They're not actually having to drive the kids to school every single day. So that's less money that needs to be spent on the road, et cetera, et cetera. You ever thought about being a Solidity auditor? No, fortunately, Guava we got a guy on our team for that. But I mean, dude, no. Not because I wouldn't want to, because I'm not interested in it. And in fact, that's very good pay. And I don't have the time to do much. I don't have the time to take a shower these days, guys. But if I did have the time and I want to do something like that, I would most likely take up a bounty, like some kind of Solidity bounty or some kind of smart contract bounty. And I would go and I would try to see if I could go and basically break one of these people's smart contracts or fulfill whatever the parameters are of said bounty. And I would just make that like a game. And if I won and it's like a $5 million bounty, then oops, free $5 million worth of Ethereum. And of course, it's not free because you're like doing hard work, right? But if you're doing it for fun, it's not as hard and it's not so much work. New Horizons says, as a contractor, I will upgrade my PC for business purposes. I mean, you have to, right? You literally have to get a new. If you're gonna be a good entrepreneur whose business is based off of providing quality software to people, and you have like a 50-year-old computer, like the fuck are you doing, dude? You know what I mean? So of course you should regularly be upgrading your machinery, 100%. A quote from Max Nitas, quote, in this world, it's famous or be famoused. Yes, indeed. So from there, guys, I actually inevitably went back to a W-2 job because my contracts ran out, and honestly, the casinos ran out a lot of their funding, and a couple of the ones we were working on actually ended up going bankrupt because they were pushing so much software, so much money into this software that they were making us build. That if I'm being realistic with you guys, or if I'm being honest with you guys, the software that they were requiring us to build was a little unrealistic. To keep it short and brief, essentially the software they wanted us to have like Five Eyes, like NSA software that we were making for them that was going to backdoor into like all these like crime databases, and like we were going to have software or the software was going to be able to detect people's face and do facial recognition from the cameras they have, and then cross-reference it with their ID that they checked in with at the beginning of the casino, and then go and backdoor in all these databases that you had to pay to be inside of, with like different crime, three-letter agencies of the government, if you guys know what I mean. And they wanted us to do that in ASP and VB.net. So, not the best tech that you would choose to do such an application. But anyway, I did go back to W-2 employee, and I took a little bit of a pay bump, but by then I was already like a couple years in. So the increase that I got going back to a salaried employee, it actually kind of evened out because I wasn't paying health insurance and all this other stuff. So from there, I was essentially working as a software engineer in we'll just say the insurance business. And there's nothing wrong with what I would have done at that point in life. But in all honesty, I ended up quitting, you guys, as you guys know, because I'm full-time with literally 2 different companies and a YouTube channel. I would have just quit and done what I did now. I would have just taken the leap of faith, and I would have just done it anyway. I wanted to make sure that when I quit my day job, that it was because I literally had no more time for my day job and I was losing money at my day job. And that is indeed exactly what happened. I was losing money working for my day job when I had clients and a software company of my own and a YouTube channel. So I quit the way that I wanted to, exactly how I wanted to. And I had enough funding and money coming in and cushion underneath me to where it was all okay. But if I'm being honest with you guys, I would have just, if I could go back, I would have quit before that, and I would have just lived poor for a bit if I had to, just to get these companies off the ground. Because now I know it ended up being okay, and it is a possibility. It's not this thing that just doesn't exist, even though it seems like this kind of like thing that's not tangent and you can't never gonna exist. It does. And after I've been doing it, I see all these other people in the world that I've connected with that are doing the same thing. And it wasn't this impossible thing anyway. SN says, if you don't mind me asking, what do 24-year-old college graduates spend their money on? Dodge Chargers, BMWs, and cryptocurrency. That was about it. What else? I mean, I was a bodybuilder, so I spent a lot of my money on like quality food and coaches and everything that entails bodybuilding, because bodybuilding ends up being expensive. And I managed to be able to put some away in a 401k, which I would have not done that again. That's for sure. That's for damn sure. What else did I spend my money on? Being a fresh college graduate in 24 and making good money and being able to go to a restaurant and like order whatever the hell that is that you want, because you know that everything's going to be okay. That's not so bad too. I spent a lot of money on cars. I blew cars up. literally I blew up a 1 Series BMW at 36,000 miles, but I don't even know how that thing blew up. I mean, I did dog the hell out of it. But a car shouldn't be blowing up at 36,000 miles. So spent a lot of money on cars, and I don't know, like what else did we spend our money on? Well, you weren't alive back then. And I feel like I should have something still that I could like to this day touch and be like, yeah, I bought that. I mean, I bought computers too. But usually after I have a computer for a while, if I get a new one and I have like one that's later, I end up selling it back to Apple or something. Man, yeah, that's pretty much really it. Food, cars, and obviously alcohol. Harry Maguire says, how long was that whole journey from first job to DD Guava? Approximately like 10 years. You're a programmer, not a programmer. Good, dude. Me too. And most people in this chat are. Quality protein. I did spend money on quality protein. That's for sure. It's expensive. So is human growth hormone. It's also very expensive as well, my friends. So that's pretty much what I would have done in the whole process, guys. As far as like learning things differently, I started learning like actually when I tried to focus on like learning code, I started learning Java because that's what our school taught. I inevitably ended up being a Java teacher's assistant for a laboratory. I would have started learning on web development if I could have. And I tell you guys all the time, it doesn't really matter what programming language you guys start with or what tech stack. The whole point is to learn to code. So that's actually the real thing. But I would have probably got the ball running on web development because I feel like there's more of an abundance of web development. There's more of an abundance of web development people that need web development. So I think that would have been easier to monetize. I would have done that instead. And also, finally, I would say there's this whole new movement of like this no code movement. All the Zoomers are into this stuff, even though most of the Zoomers can actually code pretty heckin' good. I would have at least begun to entertain some of that stuff sooner than now. Now, things like Figma back then, they didn't exist, and Webflow. And honestly, guys, if you guys know anything about, if we're talking about Web3 development, because I know someone mentioned Rust in here earlier, the Solana network, like you can make a Solana, you can make a token on the Solana network with just running some scripts. Like you don't even have to like do any, like it'll generate the Rust contract for you. And that's through Solana's CLI itself, which is pretty cool. So I would have at least looked into more of that stuff because there is a time and a place for no code coding and then real code coding. Okay. There's a time and a place, okay, for both of them. And if you're doing stuff that is more time efficient and it's going to be actually better quality with this no code movement, and you're just trying to brute force it with real code, that's dumb. You're wasting your time and you're losing yourself time and money, which time and money is not finite. Although it might seem that way now with the Federal Reserve raising the interest rates, but we'll check on that in about 18 months. Let's see. So, guys, it is Friday. I won't sit here and blabber on any longer. I would like to go eat some sushi. As you guys see in the corner right here, Light wants to go eat some sushi as well. Don't you, Light? So, as always, guys, you guys know the drill. Learn to code. Learn to change your own tire. Self-custody your own crypto. Link in the description box below for all of those mentioned things, except for the changing of the tire. You guys are going to have to figure that out on your own. That is it. I'm out. See ya.